Hi, I'm Luke and I'm in 5th grade.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm Associate Professor of Translational Nutrition at the Plants for Human Health Institute. And we're here today so Luke can ask some questions about a recent blueberry trial that we did. So first we're going to ask a few questions of Luke. So Luke, do you like to eat blueberries?
Yes.
Yes? And what would you think if you ate blueberries versus a bar, like a granola bar or cereal bar with blueberries in it? What would you think would be better for your body?
Probably the blueberries itself.
So the whole blueberries. Well, that's what most people think. It's actually a little more complicated than that, but that's what we're trying to establish in our research project.
And a research project is like an experiment, right?
Yes?
I've learned about the scientific method when I went to a science fair and worked on a project. Did you use the scientific method in your experiments?
Yes, we did. So just like you would have learned at the research fair, we started with a purpose or a research question. So our purpose was to establish what happens to the compounds or the components of a blueberry when they're eaten when you consume them, and how they're processed by the body. So you know that berries and fruits have things like vitamins and minerals, right? Now there's lots of other compounds in berries that we're also interested in, and the main ones are what gives the blueberry its purple colors. So they're often referred to as pigments, and specifically there's a pigment called an anthocyanin. It's a bit of a funny name that you've probably never heard before, but it's something that people feel is one of the components that makes blueberries healthy for you. So we're trying to establish when you eat blueberries in different forms, whether it be as a fresh blueberry or a frozen blueberry, or one is a juice versus one maybe compressed and made into a protein bar, are there differences in how the body processes those components, and does that impact how that affects health?
What was your hypothesis?
So our hypothesis was that these components in berries, the anthocyanins or the pigments, they would be processed in the same way, whether it be a fresh berry or, say, a product like a protein bar. But we felt that although they'd be processed in the same way and the same amount of the compounds would get into our bodies, the time course that the compounds took throughout the body might be slightly different depending on the different forms that the berries were in.
How did you conduct your experiment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we had to recruit people to be involved with this study. So we recruited adults from the local area, and they came into our clinic over the course of a number of months, and we had 4 different meals that basically we fed them. So on one day they would eat blueberries with a protein shake, and then they would come back later and eat a different type of blueberries with the same protein shake, or they would consume a bar made with the same blueberries, or they would consume just a protein shake that had no berries involved in it at all. That allows us to establish the differences in the blood and urine that we collect from these individuals over multiple days to see how each of them is processing each of these products.
Where can I find out about the conclusions that you reach?
Yes, that's a good question. So as we haven't finished the study yet, we haven't published the conclusions, but what happens next essentially is we take the data from the study and we generate a report. Essentially, it's published in a journal. So a journal is like a magazine that's a collection of people's scientific reports. So what we do is we submit that, and that goes out to something called a peer review. So basically, it goes out to other scientists so they can evaluate it and say, okay, did we follow the scientific method? Did we collect our data appropriately? And it gives them a chance to also provide comments. So they might think we might want to add some more discussion in one area, or we might want to change the way we graph our data. And then eventually that goes out to other scientists or the public, and that allows people to see our data, and it also allows them to maybe use the data to inform future experiments or studies that they want to do in the same area.
So how many people do you have working on this?
Yes, so there's usually multiple people involved in a study of this size. So if you consider we have to get people from the public, so you have people that need to find those people. So it might be writing advertisements or doing posts on Facebook. You've got the media side of it, and then you've got people responding to emails and telephones. There's a lot of moving pieces. We have to make foods. We have to put foods in bags so people can take home. We got to schedule appointments, and then we got to collect samples. So there's probably 10 or 12 people involved in the whole trial. Now that we're just in the data analysis stage, there's 2 or 3 people upstairs right now in the laboratory. We're actually analyzing the samples as we speak. So it's taken about 2 years to get from start to finish of this type of work. So that's a great question.
How did COVID affect this?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the trials, when we planned it, should have only taken, or the experiment should have only taken about 8 or 10 months. It's taken over 24 months because COVID caused us to shut down for 6 or 8 months, and then because of social distancing, we can't have multiple people in one room. So if you need to have a nurse take your blood, you can only have one nurse and one person in a room. So we've only been able to process one person a day. So it's actually, the trial's taken about 5 times longer than it should have because of COVID. But we actually made it to the end, which a lot of people doing research during the time of COVID were unable to do. So we're very thankful to everyone that was involved in this research that had the willpower to really see it through COVID.